I'm CJ, and this is Truth Tuesday. So I learned something new this week. I've always been interested in this, but we had our student ministry worship uncoiled out at the fire pit Sunday night, and it fit right in with what I was talking about. And so I Googled how to start a fire using only sticks. Now, what I found when I Googled this and figured out how to actually do this, I've never tried this yet, but I hope to at some point, was astonishing, because what I anticipated was that you would rub two sticks together, and granted, it would take a while, but at some point, those two sticks would catch fire. And what I found is that's not actually what happens. What happens is there are a couple different methods to do it, but you rub two sticks together in such a form or fashion that you generate heat and you generate smoke. And then your only goal in rubbing those two sticks together is to create one small ember. And that small ember is then dumped very carefully into a pile of fibrous material or tinder that then catches on fire. Now, why am I talking about fire? Because it's the fall and it's fire season and bonfires, and I just really like fire. But here's what I found. What I found is that we are a people of immediacy. When I go out to start a fire, I use a fire starter because I don't want to take the time to rub two sticks together. I don't even want to take the time to light paper and then try to get a fire going from small sticks on top of paper before adding larger wood. No, I use a fire starter and just throw wood on and it starts the fire. We are a people of immediacy. And often, because we are a people of immediacy, we incorporate that immediate mindset into our faith. You think about it. When you think about your faith and you talk about your faith, you talk about the moment you believed. You talk about the moment you were baptized. You talk about that one time you made a decision that took a huge leap in faith. And so when we go to share our faith with other people, when we go to extend Christ's love with other people, what we expect is that one conversation in their entire life is going to turn around, because things should happen immediately. But often what happens is growth in faith takes cultivation. So I want to encourage us today in this one thing, that we would go out and we would share Christ's love, but when we don't see immediate effects, we don't lose heart. When we don't see immediate effects, we don't lose heart. In the book of 1 Corinthians, Paul is addressing an issue that's going on in this very idea of immediacy. There are people that are saying, I follow Paul, I follow Apollos, and they're saying, Paul is the one that changed my life because I can take it back to this moment. He's the one that helped me believe and baptized. And people are saying, no, it was Apollos. And there was this argument going on. And Paul is just very clear. He says, listen, Paul and Apollos are nothing. They're just workers for God. But he says this in chapter 3, verse 6. He says, Paul, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave growth. You see, Paul is addressing something much larger than just who do you follow, Paul or Apollos. Paul is addressing this idea that growth in faith takes time. It's not immediate. Paul is saying, I planted a seed, and then sometime later, Apollos came along and watered that same seed that I planted. And see, so often when we go out and we express Christ's love to people, when we go out and we share Christ's love, we are not going to be the one that lights the fire. We are not going to be the one that sees the seed pop up. Now, that may happen, and those are exciting times and incredible. But more often than not, we find ourselves and our friends find ourselves in our faith in a time of cultivation, More often than not, we and our friends in our faith find ourselves in a time of cultivation. We find ourselves a seed sitting under the ground that is taking root that nobody sees. We find ourselves just generating heat by rubbing sticks together over and over and over, generating smoke, generating a small ember that someday will turn into a huge fire. Here's the exciting part about impacting people in a time of cultivation is this: when we don't lose heart, when we know that our love that we are expressing, that the conversations that we are having, that God is using those to make a difference, we know that God is changing lives. We may never see it. You may love someone, you may plant a seed, you may have a conversation, and you may think, well, all right, I didn't see anything from that, but God saw it. And it may be that 40 years from now, that person's life is changed because someone watered that seed, because someone took that ember that you started and dumped it into tinder, and this fire blazed. But if you never planted the seed, if you never started the ember, their life would never be changed. And I am convinced that if we would go out and we would not lose heart, that we would love people with the gospel, that we would show Jesus' love, that we would know that God is using that in mighty and powerful ways, even when we are touching people in moments where their life is just being cultivated and we never see the results. If we don't lose heart and we go out, I am convinced that when we get to heaven, God is going to reveal to us all the lives that were changed, and all the different communities that were impacted, and all the different families that were changed, all because we chose to not lose heart and to go out and love, to go out and share the message of Jesus, knowing that God is the one that brings growth, and it happens on his timetable. So this week, go out and love people with the gospel. Don't lose heart. Know that you may just be planting a seed. Years from now, someone else may come along and water it. But we know that God is the one that is causing growth and changing lives through what we're doing. Thanks for listening.